or so, back to the Australian National University. Well, first let me say the 217 tonnes that goes from each hectare, we know that's the measure, and so does the Australian Greenhouse Office, except they don't count it. Because under the Kyoto arrangement of 1997, you don't count degradation of forest. You count deforestation, but you don't count degradation of forest, and it is guns and the other wood chip corporations marauding the southern forests of Australia are turning the big forests they cut down into plantations. That's forest degradation and is not counted as part of Australia's greenhouse gas emissions. Well, 217 tonnes per hectare. Dr. Brendan Mackey and his fellow workers at the Australian National went out and actually measured on the ground, the first time ever, what it is. And in average, where you look at land clearance and logging across Australia, lots of woodlands, Tiwi Islands, they've clobbered 30,000 hectares in the last couple of years, and they're looking at another 70,000 hectares. That's just north of Darwin. I was up there last week. It's one of the reasons Labor lost so many votes in the election last Saturday. Average it out, 217 tonnes. What the ANU found was it's actually 3 times that at 640 tonnes a hectare of toxic carbon being put into the atmosphere to accelerate the warming of the planet. But when you get to the big forests of Victoria and Tasmania, it doesn't average out at 640 tonnes, it averages out at over 1,000 tonnes per hectare. 5 times the calculation that's been used in the past. And when you get to Eucalyptus regnans, Latin, king of the forest, the trees where El Grande was one of them, it averages out in excess of 2,000 tonnes per hectare, 10 times the calculation that's been used, even though they don't count it in the calculations of the last year or two under the Howard government, now the Rudd government and the various state Labor governments which are involved. Now, James Hansen, who is the chief scientist for the NASA scientific laboratories in the United States, went to Congress in 1988 and he warned Congress about climate change. He wasn't the first. Ralph Fletcher from the ANU warned about it in the 1960s. Somebody from Bracknell, just down the road from me, sent me a 1969 clipping the other day, and here is Ralph Fletcher saying, "This is going to heat the planet. Beware, it should stop." Well, we didn't stop, but 20 years later, Mr. Hansen went to Congress and said, "We must stop this. It threatens life on the planet." Nothing's happened. So he went again on the 20th anniversary a week ago to Congress and said that we probably have passed the point of no return. We have probably passed into such dangerous climate change with the triggering of the factors, some of the factors I've been talking about and you know about, which simply not only replicate but lead into much worse, and the tundra. I've forgotten the exact figures, but something like, if it gets melting, and it is, you've seen those houses that the Inuit people even tipping into the once frozen permafrost tundra, now melting, will put out 80, 100 times the amount of greenhouse gases that we human beings are producing at the moment at our maximum when it gets going. And we have a government in place. Let me just finish with James Hansen. Describes people who dig coal up out of the ground and burn it or export it from now on, he said to Congress, are criminals. Well, I went to the press gallery the other day in Canberra to give a talk about climate change, and the first question I got from the press afterwards was, well, shouldn't the coal companies be compensated, Senator Brown, if the Greens bring in these rules for ending this destruction of the atmosphere upon which all life on the planet depends? And I said to the poor benighted person who lives in a bubble on a hill in Canberra and who spends his whole life trying to determine decreasing differences between Labor and Liberal to create acre feet of newsprint each day for people sipping coffee to try and forget that the world is going down the chute while all this happens. And I said to him, when it comes to asbestos, I thought we didn't compensate the companies, we compensated the victims. Why should we alter that to the coal corporation? And you know, that's the world we're in. But the fastest thing that this nation could do besides energy efficiency, and I was in the Parliament in Victoria, Melbourne, Spring Street today, and I had the great privilege of turning out all 3 lights in the gents' toilet. Lovely sunlight coming in there, but it's our automatic reactions. You've got to go and turn all the lights on, even where the light is already on. I did it yesterday too. I'm a peculiar human being because I feel a little bit good about that when I walk out of the room. But there it is. And we have the ability, if we stop logging tomorrow, now I'm talking about the export wood chip industry and those great forests, it's all being exported to make paper, to create greenhouse gases on rubbish dumps within 3 years in the Northern Hemisphere. If we stopped it under the old calculations, we would reduce Australia's greenhouse gas output by 10% pronto. Under the new calculations, by 25%, straight away. What's Mr Rudd, Ms Wong and Mr Garrett doing about it? Well, they're sending $200 million to Indonesia to help them stop logging their forests over there because it's creating greenhouse gases. And they're sending $100 million, as I said earlier, down to guns to help with transport infrastructure, cloverleaf roads, rail interlinking with roads, to hurry our forests into that giant forest-killing pulp mill, which, by the way, is going to have a forest furnace attached, producing 184 megawatts, that's Franklin Dam, in electricity to send across to Melbourne for peak load, because there's 100,000 new air conditioners a year going into place in that city, and they need cheaper power to fire the air conditioners. And so on it goes. Well, we Greens are here to say that has got to stop, and what's more, put a little bit of common humility, common sense and good human-heartedness into it, and we can do it. The Age on Sunday ran a column from somebody at La Trobe University saying, these Greens are terrible people. Do you know what they want to do? They want to put our grandchildren ahead of us. We haven't fixed up our own time, and they want to measure everything by what happens to our grandchildren. They are, what a perverse sort of people they are, thinking of their grandchildren before themselves. Look at it online. Talk about wacky, but this is serious stuff coming from the right-wing commentariat about the rise of the Greens. Machiavelli said 600 years ago, if you want to change the world, get ready to be dropped on, I'm translating here because my Italian wasn't good, get ready to be dropped on from a great height by those who have most power or money to lose. And, you know, if you want to sour your coffee latte in the morning when you have it, read the opinion columns of The Australian. They hardly ever miss without a skeptic, a climate skeptic on the page. For all of that, we're the optimists. A couple of reasons there. One is if you do think of your grandkids, and you can see them smiling back because they, instead of being forgotten by a world that tragically spoils everything, we change what we're doing because we're thinking of them. You can see them smiling in the future, thinking, weren't they a good lot? And as soon as you see them smiling, you start smiling yourself. It's just a human reaction. So it's a pretty nice arena to be moving in.